Hello, my name is Gaurav and welcome to Avid Secret Studio. Today I'm joined by a family of Avid, one of our greatest users on Pro Tools, absolute beast when it comes to mixing and tracking as well. Done some amazing work, people like Justin Timberlake, many other greats out there. But one thing that I love doing on this Secret Studio, Damien, is getting the artist or the producer or the engineer to give a little introduction to themselves.
Yeah.
So who's Damien and what do you do?
Who is Damien? Well, I've been making records for a minute now. Recording engineer, producer, mixer. Been on Pro Tools since late version 6,
Wow.
I think. Yeah, I started really getting into it around version 7. So yeah, we're in the 2022 world now. So I've been using it for a minute. And it's been my bread and butter platform. So I live in Los Angeles and spend time mixing at home when I can, and also just around all of the studios around LA. So yeah.
That's amazing, man. And also, you've probably seen the evolution of Pro Tools as well, right?
I have,
Where
yeah.
it was from 6 now to all the way up to 22.5 to be exact.
It didn't have delay compensation when I started.
Well, that helps you a lot now.
You had to enter in a time adjuster plugin and see how many samples of delay it was and put it in the time adjuster plugin.
Oh my God,
yeah.
that's insane.
Yeah.
So now that definitely helps your workflow.
You kids have it good now.
And the good thing about, as you said about the new gen and stuff, right, is that you can just get a laptop now and start mixing with headphones on. Like, we don't even have an interface connected right now. We have an iLock, we have a laptop, charger, and that's it. And you're ready to go. And you're going to share some gems. This is quite a big session.
It's a pretty small one, actually.
Okay.
Yeah. There's
actually, do you want to just maybe get an introduction to the session itself and what we're looking at over here?
Yeah, sure. So starting from the top going down, this blue track is my print track. So the mix basically gets recorded onto this track, and I keep this in input monitor.
Okay.
And then I have my master bus, and then which is actually an aux track.
Oh,
so
nice.
I don't use the master bus in its typical intended use, and I'll get into why. But there always is a master in a Pro Tools session, whether it's visible or not. It is kind of running in the background. So I do have an actual master fader that lives below my mix bus, and I'll use that sometimes if I need to like trim the whole mix back a little bit. But typically that's there just kind of hanging out. Then I have an instrument bus, which all of my instrument tracks will eventually get filtered down there from their corresponding auxes. And then drums, you can see those. I've been loving folder tracks since that came out. That's a huge workflow help. Bass, synth, and then a couple vocal tracks in green.
Just on the folder tracks, I want to quickly touch on that.
Yeah.
Obviously, you've got two types, the basic and you've got the routing.
Right.
Yeah, stop saying routing. Routing. But which ones do you prefer using? Because obviously organizational for basic. Do you use the organizational side of it, or do you kind of just use it as an aux basically?
Occasionally I use the organizational side.
Okay, nice.
And usually in one aspect, and that's I like to have all my effects returns come back to a folder.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, and sometimes I'll
And then into your mix bus?
Yes.
Wow.
They go to their corresponding group. So these are all vocal effects.
Yep.
They feed the all vocal bus. Then I have, and also this is a parallel vocal bus. We'll get into that.
Dope, man.
But then I have my all instrument effects.
Yeah.
And they feed the instrument bus.
Right, okay.
So in other words, if we had a shared reverb, say we had a plate reverb that was on the lead vocal and also on the snare drum, that would get kind of messy in a way, because if you were to mute the all instrument group, it would still be going there. So I like to have my instrument effects all go to the instrument bus. They're all processed as an instrument. So when you mute it, everything's quiet. And then I have my vocal effects that are all going to a specific vocal master.
Okay.
So they don't intermingle. Sometimes it might be the same plugin. It might be a deverb that is the same settings, but one is specifically for instruments, one is specifically for vocals. That way I can manipulate both of them. And then I have my effects returns all down at the bottom. But I do love folders on those because it's great just to be able to, close all of that stuff up.
It's really strange though, because like before I love folders and how they've come in, but before folders were there, like people didn't really like think about it. They were just multiple tracks. Working with it was working. And folders came and it was like having an assistant.
Yeah.
It's like you just automatically had an assistant just entered into Pro Tools. You're like, oh wow, you can help my workflow.
The thing you didn't know until you had it.
Literally got it.
My favorite part, honestly, is just being able to solo the group and all of the content solo.
So good.
Because that was a whole other step before with the aux track. You had to solo each element individually. Yeah. This is so useful, just being able to hit one thing. And
this is a very neat session, by the way, Damon, I have to say.
Yeah, I guess that's just my personality. Like
yeah, I like that.
I use all the same colors for all the same elements in all of my sessions. I have to have everything labeled. I love to cut out the space where something's not playing. I'm a very visual person. And I live on this software. I'm on it 8 hours a day.
Wow.
So it's like I have a certain way I like everything, and it just allows me to move faster and know where everything is. My tracks are always in the same order.
Wow.
Yeah, it's just
It's so amazing that you say you live on the software. That's so true, because earlier we were having a conversation about like the domino effect of like, if the software doesn't work, the engineer doesn't work.
Right.
If the engineer doesn't work, the producer's annoyed, and the producer's annoyed, then the artist's annoyed, then the label, and it's literally like a domino effect. With the engineers and the producers, and obviously software as well is so vital. So living in it literally is, and I know how much bug reporting you do for us as well, which is amazing. Thank you for the feedback. With your carbon. Which hopefully you're enjoying as well.
It's been amazing. Yeah,
nice.
I love it. Yeah.
But yeah, man, let's dive in and have a little listen.
Cool. Let's play a little bit first, and I'll show you what's going on.
Might come back to MIA to stay. Bless me while I'm still awake like heaven. Call me crazy, call my reverend. You talk like New York into Venezuelan. Met you at the front desk, what is your name? You said that's me, But why don't you hit me up then? Come on over, I'd love to see you. Anytime my mama.
Wow. Dude, that sounds really, really good, man.
Thanks, man.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's a little taste of what is going on there.
Okay, right. I want to dive in now a little bit.
Cool. Get my wavy wanes right.
Oh, yes.
All right, so we could start from, I might actually take these off a little bit while I'm playing it. Yeah, let's start from the drums and move down, I guess.
Is that what you, so in a mix when you kind of get the stems, right? Is that what you normally, so normally you'd listen, figure out obviously what the problems must be, and then you go straight to the drums, or it depends?
No, I actually don't. I used to.
Okay.
I start with the vocals now. I started doing that a few years ago. At first it was like, the drums are kind of the natural thing because it's the most fun. It's like, it's fun to get your drums slapping. But here's the thing, like the vocals are the only thing that matters.
So true.
It's the only thing that matters. Like, it's great if your drums are smacking, but like if the vocals aren't right, they don't sound good, they're not popping.
I agree.
So what had happened was when I started mixing the instrumental first, when it was time to fit the vocal in, it didn't fit.
Right, okay.
So now it's like you're taking the most important element and you're ignoring it. And all of a sudden you're trying to like shoehorn the vocal in at the very end. When I started flipping that on its head and making the vocal the most important element and then working around it, everything came together faster.
Wow. See, that's different, because normally I hear the opposite, like you just said, the drums thing.
Yeah.
But I guess when I heard this mix, your mix sounds very open and different. Like the vocals are very like in front, they're on top.
Yeah.
A lot of the other stuff, they get, a lot of the other kind of people go straight to the drums. I've heard that the vocals are getting lost a little bit, and it's not as focused, which again, genre-wise, it might be whatever, but with this stuff, with the vocal sitting on top, sounds really like crisp and in your face as such.
I try to pride myself on a mix that's like, the vocal sounds amazing. Like I spend a lot of time EQing and compressing to get the vocal just right. And, you know, I worked for Phil Tan for a long time, and he was the master of vocals.
Nice.
Yeah. When I changed my workflow to think about it like that, everything kind of opened up for me. And I spent less time working backwards trying to fix problems that I created by not hearing everything in the mix. It's like the whole thing, like mixing in a vacuum is really dangerous, like working in solo, because you make these elements sound amazing, but at the end of the day, it doesn't matter because it's all about how everything sounds together.
I've seen that so many times, man. When you're, you know, when you're watching tutorials and someone's educating, you're like, dude, why are you, why are you teaching them that? Like, stop.
Yeah.
And you're forgetting, you're literally what you just said, you're EQing like a kick drum or whatever it may be, and then you're forgetting all the other elements now. And actually, on that point, I really want to touch on gain staging a little bit as well.
Oh, yeah.
Really briefly, just explain, I mean, just how important it is to you to gain stage when you get a mix.
Yeah, clip gain is your best friend. So one of the things that I'll do is I'll go through a vocal. This one's been cleaned up a little bit.
Okay.
Because we made it, specifically for NAMM too, so I had to commit a couple small plugins that were on here.
Okay.
But the one fun thing about this is I rebuilt this mix using all Avid stock stuff.
Oh, wow.
So everything you hear is what comes with Pro Tools.
So that answers my question, which I was probably going to ask later on. What do you actually need? Like, do you need to buy this plugin, that plugin, this plugin? You could use a stock
You really
stuff.
don't. I mean, as someone who owns almost everything that's out there, it was actually fun to do this.
Yeah.
And dig into
nice.
a couple that was like, oh yeah, I haven't used this one in a while, but it was cool and it works and it sounds great. And this mix might even be better sounding than the original one that came out.
Yeah, I mean, it's powerful. I mean, you got to look back to kind of like, I mean, what got like a lot of people on Pro Tools, like Pro Tools 10, 11, I remember, was the fact that it was like the EQ and the compression and stuff, the dyne stuff, and it's really powerful. And even till this day, it's so powerful.
Yeah, EQ7's got a definite sound to it.
Yeah.
To go back and answer your question about gain staging, yes, super important for a couple of reasons. One, plugins all have an internal threshold of where they like to receive, how much RMS they like to receive before they start to crap out on you. This is a great example of that. This is something that sounds amazing in the sweet spot, but it'll crap out when you hit it with too much level. So, and that goes to show with your compression also. So if you spend a little bit of time going through your vocal track and clip gaining everything, you're going to hit your compressor more evenly, more consistently, and then you're going to spend less time having to use multiple layers of automation in order to control everything. And because you want your compressors to act fairly evenly and responsive, rather than slamming 10 dB of gain reduction and then the next word it does nothing because that word is much quieter.
Right.
So the more you can like spend your first layer of automation going through and clip gaining, the faster you're going to get to a consistent vocal sound.
When clip gaining came, it must be really beneficial for you, right? You must have been so happy.
Yeah, it was everything. It basically removed a whole other layer of automation.
Wow.
And I could leave my compressor that I'm feeding open and I can just kind of watch the gain reduction happening and know how much I want to turn up or turn down each word. So maybe I'm hitting a consistent like 3 to 5 dB of compression. So I'll just kind of clip gain accordingly so that my vocal performance is even. And then when I go to do my automation layer with my trim automation, you can see here I have to do a lot less because I've kind of got everything sitting where I like already.
Okay.
Yeah, so, and I like to write my automation in trim mode as opposed to in volume.
Okay.
And that is because now I can still freely grab the fader and move it. Where in volume automation, as soon as you do that, as soon as you hit play, it snaps back, right?
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I'm learning something new every time.
Yeah, so you have to go down here. If this was in volume automation, you have to go down here to this tool and and then move the whole thing.
Wow.
But I might have my automation written and be like, yeah, the vocal needs to come up a little bit, and then I can just do that here, and I don't have to change any automation.
Wow.
Your fader still is active.
Oh my God, that's so good.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's volume trim, right? Okay.
Yeah, so that was a great part about like trim being included in Pro Tools Studio coming out.
Right.
So people will have access to this that didn't currently have that unless they had Ultimate. Or, So we should start with the vocals then, since we're here. Hey. Okay, so all of my vocals are feeding a all Vox bus.
Yep.
As you can see, this just had a little EQ and compression on it before it was committed. It was nothing crazy. So, and that's going to tape saturation just to bring out some of the harmonic content, thicken it up a little bit, kind of generally just make it sound a little more polished and finished. I love multiband compression. This is a great tool. So in here, I have my crossover points set to places where I like for vocals. So 162, this is everything below that. And then I have my mid-range here, my upper mids, and then my kind of sparkle here.
Yeah.
So we could play back a little of this and you can see it working.
Might come back to MIA to stay. Bless me while I'm still awake like heaven.
And then you can go in here and solo the bands and kind of see where things are working.
Wow.
Check out the mid-range. So then I'll set that accordingly. So I'm just kind of touching the compressor a little bit on each one of those bands, but also doing a bit of tone shaping here. So I think I'm giving it a little bit of gain on the high end, I'm actually not. Oh, so I'm boosting a little of the low mids actually.
Mm-hmm.
So within that, I'm doing my compression and I'm also doing a little bit of final EQ sculpting.
Right. Okay.
All within this. And then you have your independent attack and release times on each one of those bands. It's really powerful once you start to get into the multi-band thing. And the EQ was sounding pretty good already, so then I just have a little bit of high pass filter.
Yep.
Just to keep things from getting a little too woofy down there. So it's pretty simple. Effects wise, I have a slap and some ambience, a 480 type digital reverb, and delay, and some throws. So I can show you how all those go if you care to see them.
Please.
Again, these are all stock plugins. So these are my all vocals groups. So my slap.
Wow, so you actually got all stock plugins.
Yeah,
Nice.
yeah, it's fun. Yeah, so that's the slap off of that guy. This is a killer setting. Okay, so this is a preset within it called Ambience Bright. And I don't know who made it. It's been in this plugin forever, but it's awesome. It just adds like a little bit of like thickness and depth to the voice.
Right.
I put this in my template about a year ago, and it's on pretty much every vocal at this point. There's a rap verse down the line that has like a different chain for the actual effects section.
So you got rap verb as well. Okay.
Yeah. Sometimes that'll be like a shorter reverb than like a singer's. Then within Revibe, this is an amazing setting too. The vintage digital large hall. And I've kind of tweaked this the way I like it with the EQ setting and stuff like that, and the width. But that kind of replicates like an old Lexicon 480 digital type reverb. And then we have just our dynamic delay for the vocals. And I have a sidechain from the vocals going to this compressor, which just ducks the delay while he's singing. So you can see here with the gain reduction, how it's reducing the amount of delay while he's singing.
Wow, okay. Oh, yeah.
And then when it lets go of the compression, then the delay starts to open up. So it ducks it out of the way while the vocals are actually happening.
And that's how you do it. You can do that with reverb as well, though. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a great trick to keep your effects from becoming too sloppy.
So just so I can go over that again for the new gen, basically. So the vocals. So if you've got a chorus or a verse, you know, and it's chopping around.
Yeah.
When they're singing in the next, let's say, syllable, whatever comes in, the reverb will cut off.
Right.
Right. And then when he's not singing, then it'll come back in.
Then it opens up. Yeah.
Wow.
Especially useful at the end of a line when he says the end of a word, then you want the delay to happen in the space.
Right. Okay.
You don't necessarily want the delay happening while he's singing, because then it just starts to clutter up things and take up valuable space in there. And you can see here on my vocal track how there's a plus next to all vocals.
Yep.
So I like to send all of my side chains off of this as opposed to a send. So these sends are used exclusively for effects. But there's a little trick where you can hold control and click on your output tab, and it allows you to send the output of the track to multiple places. So here you can see that there's a check mark next to bus 2. So I use bus 2 as my vocal side chain.
That's insane.
Yeah, so
you can send it to multiple. Wow.
Yeah, so it's coming out of my all vocals bus right above it, but it's also being split off, and sidechain 2 is feeding this compressor.
Does that do anything to the volume or anything to that?
It does not. No.
Nothing. So literally just split signal and boom, boom. Wow.
I like to use that for my parallel sends also, as opposed to creating a send here and sending to a bus. I like everything post fader at the end of the line. To me, it sounds a little better. Like I feel like the phase coherency is a little more on point when it's sent off the end of the fader as opposed to the sentence section. But that was a new thing in one of the last Pro Tools releases too, is to properly compensate sidechain delays for sends.
Yeah.
So, but before that, this was the way that I worked around this. So it's just kind of always been in my workflow. But that's a sick feature, because now your sidechains and your sends are totally in phase with the delay compensation. Right. So then I have a couple delay throws, which are just kind of like my big quarter note delays that happen at the end of phrases. And I like to have a delay, and then I'll usually muck it up with some sort of saturation or distortion, just kind of reducing the bandwidth a little bit with the sample rate and the distortion, and a little bit of chorus to spread things out, just to make it float around a little bit, and then a little reverb on top of that. So that's all. This is a delay throw effect, but it's got multiple things along the chain.
So good.
Yeah. BBD delays. So I always have 2
Wow.
throws. This is kind of my lo-fi type one.
And vocal as well?
Yeah.
Wow,
this
this
is
is all
this
vocals,
is great
right?
for vocals. Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing, man.
Yeah, and these are things I have in my template normally.
Wow, that's
This thing's really good.
delay. Oh wow, man.
Lo-fi kind of filtered, like
Yeah.
it's got a lot of the top end rolled off on it.
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah, it's really great. And this is, I just call this thick. This is just kind of like a little vocal enhancer.
I like that.
This is based off a preset that's in here too called Make It Thicker.
Wow.
So,
As
yeah.
you see out there, there's so much stuff that you can actually get with Pro Tools.
Yeah.
So all the plugins that we're kind of going through here are actually available on Pro Tools Artist, which is kind of our new tier, Pro Tools Artist, Studio, and Flex. And these plugins are actually available on Artist. It's a lot of stuff, man.
A lot of stuff and a lot of great presets
literally.
within the stuff too, because it's all about how useful is it, right?
And advice is, my advice is to learn a plugin. Like just learn the parameters on the stock plugins, and then figure out if you need to go get another plugin. It's why do you kind of need it? Like as you see, you've just created delay throws and stuff, all using stock Avid plugins.
That's the thing. If you learn EQ7 like the back of your hand, like
beast.
you can't be stopped. You know. Even little shortcuts like holding control and being able to change the cue, you know, like things that just allow you to work faster.
There
Just
you go.
being able to do that and not having to go down and mouse around and look for whatever. Yeah, it's the best. So those are all my actual like saucy vocal effects. And then I have one more kind of tricky thing, which is a parallel group that my vocals go to. So again, I'm sending off of the fader to another aux that I call vocals bright. Pretty sure I stole that from Andrew Sheps. Pretty sure.
Shout out Andrew.
Yeah, the naming convention at least. And this is just a compressor in smash mode, running along in parallel. So it's we're hitting like 10 dB of compression. Fast attack time, so it's very grabby. It's going to sound very smacky on all of the transients, and kind of medium release. And probably a pretty high ratio. Yeah, almost a 10-to-1 ratio.
Jeez. Right, okay.
Yeah, so we're smashing it. And then we're blending that back in parallel. So you see there's only minus 13 blended in. Yeah. And that's about all of the interesting stuff happening on the vocals here. As you can see, it's pretty simple. It's a small session. It's a cool song, but it doesn't need to be overly complex.
That's the thing, though. It's just like what I've learned from doing a lot kind of content and stuff like that, or working with producer and engineer in the industry, is that the simplicity is key.
Right.
But everyone has been saying just learn it, learn it. Don't do the all-in-one stuff and this and that. One knob does it all is great, but you got to learn it.
This is your bread and butter.
Literally.
And it's amazing how many templates I see that are just like insanely complicated, even on the tracking side, which that should be your simplest thing. Like when the pressure's on and you have a demanding artist there, like you need to know exactly how everything is routed, exactly what your latency chain is going to be like. So just like keep it simple and learn the things that you have in your template intimately and when to use those things. And you'll get the most mileage out of that. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so moving on from there, my instrument effects are all kind of the same thing as the vocals. It's not a whole lot different. I have a dedicated drum reverb, an instrument room. You know, it's all kind of.
It's good that you separate it out in the sense that you've got like a drum reverb, and then you've got like a different one for instruments, and you know that's nice to see that you've separated, not just have one. And you've created certain things, and this is kind of like your template that you've created, right?
It is. This is my color palette.
Right. Oh.
I want my drums in a different space. I want my room for things I just want to push back and add depth to. I want my generic kind of reverb for general instruments and my delay for general instruments. So they don't all always get used, but it gives me quick access to everything here.
Yeah.
I have my parallel stuff for my instruments, also my lo-fi. So if I just need to smash something up a little bit.
Wow.
And then I have my distortion bus.
Yeah.
Nice. So all this stuff lives in the template, and it's like, it's not too much stuff where it's overwhelming, and I have just tons of sends and tons of complex routing, and it's stuff that I can just kind of button up real quickly and then not see anymore, and it makes the tracking and mixing process a little faster and smoother. Just have everything there ready to go,
Right.
but not overly complex.
It's not. It looks so simple, and I feel like it's so random. But on your Mac, your desktop must be
Yeah.
really clean.
Yeah.
See, I can tell. I
Yeah.
can tell by your Pro Tools session.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I like that. It's like you're
Everything's
really
labeled.
detailed, and
Uh-huh.
like you just like this is so like you can understand it.
Yeah.
And if you close all the folders down, it looks great.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's great too.
I just realized that was so your Voc is that all
Yeah.
Vox in there?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's great because you just get a quick overview of where everything's at.
Yeah.
It's also nice too with the folders because like when I'm mixing something and I'm done with that, just as like a little visual cue, I usually close the folder.
Yeah.
It means like, okay, I'm fairly happy with how that sounds. Time to
Mhm.
move on to the next element.
Right. Okay. Wow. Look at that, man.
Yeah. So yeah, we can talk about drums, your
Yeah.
kick, doing the little Pultec cut boost trick.
Nice.
Yeah, high pass filter, but then you're also kind of boosting into it to
Uh-huh.
create this knee at the corner frequency. Just a cool way to make your kick drum thump a little harder.
Can we solo that
Yeah,
with the
totally.
drums or?
Yeah.
Oh.
Without it.
Oh, there's like a little bit of a it's like piercing through when it's on.
Yeah.
Like really piercing through.
Yeah.
But like not doing too much at the same time.
Right. Removing some of the low stuff that you have to think about what else is happening in the mix. So like we have a 808 in there.
Right. Okay.
So you need to kind of make that decision. Does your kick drum live below the bass or does it live above the bass?
Right,
What's
okay.
that relationship?
Uh-huh.
If it lives above, in this case, where we just want it to knock, we want to remove a little bit of stuff here and leave some room for our sub to work down there. And you'll also see here, I have a send on the kick drum. That's just called kick sidechain. And that feeds this compressor on the sub bass. So whenever you guys have seen this before, this is nothing new, but when the sub bass, when the kick drum hits, the sub bass ducks out of the way. If we go to this section. So this is our sub bass track, but you can see the kick drums triggering the side chain of the compressor.
Wow.
And that just creates a little bit of space for both of those to live in harmony. And kind of stock stuff here, making the clap a little bit thicker. Then they go to a drum bus, the Fairchild. Yeah. Just works, just sounds awesome. It's got a little grit to it. Just kind of holds everything in place. But I'm barely touching it.
Oh my god, the needle's just moving slightly.
Half a dB.
Wow.
But you miss it when it's gone. It's just...
It's like gelling your drums together, man.
Yeah. Mixing is all, for me at least, it's all subtle moves that compound upon each other. I might use multiple layers of compression and just do a little bit with each layer rather than 10 dB of one compressor, you know? Yeah. Then down to synths. Let's see, we're using like a little flanger on one of our synth parts just to kind of spread things out. But this session is an exercise in like how to do more with less.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm a big proponent of the theory of like, you don't need a plugin on every single track necessarily. If it comes into you and it sounds great, leave it alone.
Mm-hmm.
Work on those things that really grab your attention that need some work. It's kind of like learning a musical instrument. When you learn how to play the drums, you want to play as much and as fast as possible.
Oh yeah, of course.
When you become a little more mature on your instrument, you kind of give that up and you're like, yeah, I'm just going to play like meat and potatoes now. And now I've become a master.
Yeah, exactly.
So, and that's it really. There's just our synth tracks, our 808 sub, and our drums. And those all feed, we can get into our buses now. Those all feed this instrument bus, which has a little more saturation on it. Mm-hmm. My theory for this is that you've seen me use like the real tape saturation in multiple stages now. You could easily put it on the master, but I like to have one on the dedicated bus for instruments and vocals because that way I can dial in how hard they're working a little bit more. If I were to put this just on the master, the drums would be smashing into it and it would be clipping and I wouldn't be able to get that harmonic saturation that I want in the vocals also. Right. So I kind of like threw out the convention of like everything has to go on the master bus and the master bus is where everything lives and just break that down into smaller bits where I have an instrument bus. I have a vocal bus. I could treat these as master buses.
Yeah.
The old paradigm of like that came over from the console days where it was like, this is your mix bus. This is the sacred ground that only this compressor and this limiter are allowed to live.
Mhm.
It's different now. None of that stuff matters.
No.
You could stack as many plugins and anything as you want. There's no rules to this.
You could do exactly that point. You could do what you like. As long as it sounds good at the end of the day,
Yeah.
who cares what you do, right?
I don't care if you call it a mix bus or whatever. Like, this is just a place where I put
Yeah.
plugins until I like the way it sounds.
What makes sense for you, like for you as a mixer or an engineer or producer is what you should be doing, right? It's
Yeah.
like, just if it makes sense, do it. I mean, I've seen like sessions where they don't even have like bussing and they're just chucking a reverb, which is a bit crazy, but
Yeah.
then it still
Yeah.
sounded okay. And I was like,
Yeah. Did it sound good?
Cool. Yeah. I mean, this is like early days though, but
Yeah.
I mean, I did it myself. That's what I'm saying,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But like, it still sounded okay. Like,
Yeah.
But again, that's a different kind of thing. But
Yeah.
there is no kind of right answer to it.
No.
Trial and error.
Yeah.
You know?
Or you see guys like Sean Everett, who's an amazing engineer,
Yeah,
amazing
yeah.
mixes, and he'll stack, 5-10 plugins in a row on tracks all the time, and even on his buses, and
Wow.
it sounds incredible.
It sounds
So
incredible. Exactly.
there are no rules to this.
Nope.
Do whatever you need to do to
Mhm.
get to that spot. That being said, I like to lay into my buses. So
Cool.
this has impacts.
Nice. This is,
Yeah.
dude, I love this plugin, man.
This is the setting for me. Slowest attack, so the transient comes through. Fast release, so it pops back very quickly. 4-to-1 ratio. This is kind of my go-to SSL style setting. EQ P1A.
I mean, I'm sorry, but you've just shown so much stock plugins
Yeah.
that, I mean, I didn't even rate the Fairchild as well, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they're like emulations of classical gear as well.
Yeah.
And there's so much actually in here that
Yeah.
I'm like, whoa, oh my God, didn't even know it was a Fairchild.
I know.
That shows I haven't even explored through the whole list, but thank you, man. That is
Yeah.
amazing.
And you can see my settings here. This is the old Pultec trick. If you guys
Yep.
aren't familiar with it, check it out. So a little bit of boost and cut to create that low frequency corner at 60 hertz. And a nice wide Q on the top end just to add some sparkle to it. Not reinventing the wheel here, but these are just things that work.
Yep.
And again, you'll see me back with this multi-band on the mix bus. This is just for control and tone shaping. And then finally a limiter. This limiter is actually awesome. Out of all my recent stock plugins, I started using this one as my favorite.
Wow.
The character knob, I don't really know what this does, but turn it. It's great. I'll show you this working too. And it's got real-time short-term LUF readout, so you can hit your loudness targets. This thing is awesome. So.
Damn, I hate to stay. Bless me while I'm still awake like heaven. Call me crazy, call my
So we're
reverend.
only about a dB of reduction. It's not an insanely loud mix. But I can play you this, which is kind of cool. So, we print all of our mixes up here. So here's what they gave me. Here's their reference. And I'll pop in mine.
Damn, I hate to stay. Bless me while I'm still awake like heaven.
Oh my.
Call me
Yeah,
crazy,
so that's
call
mine.
What?
There's the rough mix.
I'm so glad you showed that, because what you've done, right, is you've just taken what they had and enhanced it,
Yeah.
right? And
Right.
you can, the A/B between that, you can really tell the difference, man, of what
Yeah.
you've done there. And you walked through exactly the steps. Now it makes a lot of sense, because when you A/B'd it now, it's like, wow.
Yeah, you can kind of see where
where
we
you picked it
take
back up. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow,
Yeah.
man. Thank
Yeah.
you, Damien. I really do appreciate that,
Yeah.
man.
Hopefully you
That was
guys pick
awesome.
something up from this.
Yeah, 100%. That was
Yeah.
amazing. And thank you for always using tools and
Yeah, of
carbon,
course.
obviously.
Yeah.
And
love the carbon.
yeah, thank you, dude. Thank
Thanks,
you so
G.
much, guys. Thank you so
Appreciate it, guys.
much, and we'll see you soon.